everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Between Sessions with Barry. You guys, I'm excited today. I know I always say I'm excited, but I really am super excited today. I'm going to explain why in a little while, but I'm going to introduce our guest. Barbara Griswold, LMFT, is the author of Navigating the Insurance Maze, the therapist's complete guide to working with insurance and whether you should. Now it's in its 10th edition at www.theinsurancemaze.com. She's on a mission to build therapist confidence by teaching all the practical stuff we never learned at grad school about running a therapy practice. In her 10 online trainings and in her book, she addresses topics such as how to write brief but complete session notes and treatment plans to avoid loss in an audit, understanding insurance, and billing for couples. Barbara, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm delighted to finally meet you after multiple back and forths.
I know. Like, I feel like we've talked back and forth through emails and that sort of thing. You were like such an inspiration to me. Back in, I think it was 2017, I was in my private practice. I was taking insurance. I had billers. And I realized that they were doing a bad job, that I was actually losing money. And at that time, I knew nothing really about insurance billing. And I bought your book. That was the thing that saved me. I fired them. I bought your book and I was determined to learn how to do insurance billing. So you were really the first mentor I ever had, even though I didn't work with you, but through your book, the first mentor I ever had about how to build insurance in private practice. And then I pivoted, right? And then I started a Facebook group and this thing called Bill Like a Boss, where I help therapists like in a like container learn how to bill it like live with me. But you were the start. And I'm so excited to have you here because I don't know if I ever would have figured that out if you hadn't been there offering this to clinicians back when I was really struggling. So thank you for that and for being here.
Well, you're highlighting an important thing that even if you do have a biller, in the end, every bill that goes out, we're responsible for understanding and knowing what we're billing and if the biller is doing the good job. So it's always lands in our lap and we have to know enough to be able to know whether billers are doing it right. So yay. Thanks. I'm glad you bought the book and I'm glad it was helpful to you.
Yeah, it's in its 10th edition now, which is just amazing. It's probably held. I don't even know do you know how many copies you sold over the years? I couldn't even imagine.
I don't.
Like, I wonder how many clinicians you've helped with that book. It changed my life for sure. It gave me like freedom. It gave me empowerment in my practice and allowed me to take over. Yeah, no, it's going to make me emotional. It really did help me at a time that I thought I was like doomed because I didn't know how to do it, and I was losing a lot of money because of them. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's a great story.
There's a couple of things, but I thought we could start out with just a progress note, right? It's like the bane of every therapist's existence. Like, how do I write a good progress note? So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about like the anatomy of a good progress note, especially from an insurance-based perspective. Like, somebody that's billing insurance listening to this, what are some key things they should have inside their note?
I want to say that when I started out my career or fell into my career and working with people with insurance, working with therapists, helping them help people with insurance, my workshops were all about insurance. I never talked about notes. Just kept talk insurance. Here's how to work with insurance. And then what I started to see is more and more people were coming in and saying, my records have been requested. My notes are being audited. I'm losing tons of money because they're not paying for my sessions. And over time, I realized, oh my gosh, there's so many people out there hurting great therapists who have crummy notes or non-existent notes. And so I really took a pivot in my personal career or my professional career and started teaching more people how to write session notes that will pass insurance muster. But I really want to emphasize that if you don't work with insurance, please don't tune out to this episode because there's two things you need to know. Number one, licensing boards, ethics committees might look at your notes if your client ever complains. Disability, if your client ever complains, files for disability. There's lots of situations where your notes need to be requested, and the same stuff I'm going to talk about may need to be in there.
And we should say a super bill, like if you're giving super bills,
that was
right?
my second point, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, most people who are giving super bills, they're out of network with insurance, think that their records will never be requested. And it's probably the biggest eye opener for them when they recognize that, your records can still be requested. And if your records do not meet insurance plan criteria, your client may not be reimbursed. And that's not a great relationship that you're going to have now with your client who's pissed at you for not keeping good records. And
Exactly.
it's not fair. But I'm writing an article right now about denial rates, and the denial rates for claims is actually higher for out-of-network therapists. And
Oh,
part of that is because they catch you. They know that you're not going to be keeping good notes because you're not so worried about the insurance plans, and you should be. So it's
yeah.
what I say is you should be writing the same level of notes for your out of network clients as your in network clients, as your people who are paying cash and aren't billing any insurance. I mean, you should be writing a standard type of note that covers all the bases so that if they're ever requested, you sleep like a baby the night before. That's my criteria.
I love that.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to your question unless you want to ask more.
No. I mean, perfect point. Like, I'm glad that you said that because I mean, I see it every day in the Facebook groups. People were literally say, "I'm private pay. I don't need to worry about my notes." And I'm
Yep.
like, "Yes, you literally do need
Or
to worry
you'll
about
get
your
the
notes."
question, what level of notes do I have to have to blah, 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 blah. They want to
Yeah.
know what's the least I can get away with given this situation. I'm like, no, that's not how you need to, or what diagnosis do I have to use to get paid? Like, that's not the direction you should be thinking. Like, you keep awesome notes. You put the diagnosis down that you think is right. You come from a place of integrity, and then you don't have to worry about that you're somehow trying to manipulate the system, right? Okay,
Exactly.
so what are the main ingredients? There's a lot of ingredients, unfortunately, and it depends who you're working with. If you're working with Medicaid or Medicare I think is the worst in terms of the highest criteria. And so, we'll be talking about my progress note template, but I put that together to meet all of Medicare requirements. But some other insurance plans aren't going to require as much. But there's kind of some basics that we want to talk about today that should
Yeah,
be
that's
in
great.
every note. Like,
Okay.
so the one that people are going to be surprised about if you haven't already heard this is that you have to put the therapy start and stop time. And that doesn't mean the time that the client was scheduled to come, not 11 to 11:55 or whatever. It's the client walked in the door and the therapy portion started at 11:02. Like, you need to write that down in each session. And then, oh, when did therapy stop? And we started scheduling the next session. Can't include the scheduling time. Can't include time that you documented. But you have to, in each session note, write the therapy portion, start and stop. This is the number one thing that people get, what do I want to say? Eh, fried on by the insurance plan.
Dinged, clawbacks, whatever.
Dinged is a nice word. Yeah, because if you have a perfect note, but you didn't write the start and stop time, they will say, well, you're billing for, let's say, a 90837 CPT code, which is a 60-minute code, and you have no evidence in your session note that you actually performed a 60-minute note. We have no. And let's say you do put start and stop times, but every single one is put in by your electronic health record. So it says 11 to 11:55, 11 to 11:55, because that's when the schedule was, right? That's not
Yeah.
credible to them, and they'll kick that. They'll say, well, we're not going to pay you for any of those sessions because you're not backing up. So it's such a tiny thing, and it's the thing they have latched onto. This is true for all of you hearing this. If you do nothing else in your note,
Do that. Yeah, it's because the EHRs they like have those like set times,
yeah,
55-minute session or 50-minute session, and for the longest time I never fixed that. It was just like in my note, like when you lock it, it just like automatically puts that time. That's not the right time. It's just like their
right.
preset
So
time.
some
Yeah, yeah.
EHRs you can now go in and like alter it, but for most, I just tell people start your note with therapy start and stop times, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Like, just make that your first sentence, like,
I love it. Yeah.
and then just keep writing. Like, I mean, you could try getting your EHR to change, but that's probably not going to happen.
I mean, the cool thing about Barry's is Barry's does like pick the start time and the stop time. Like as soon as you start talking to when you're finished, it doesn't account for like the scheduling and stuff. So you have to look at that. But
Okay.
it does kind of, it does that for you. It tracks it for you.
Yeah.
Which is
And
pretty
then,
cool.
of course, you have to make sure that the amount of time that you did bill for hit the marks that they need to for the one that you're billing. So if I'm billing a 90837, needs to be 53 minutes and above. When I add up, was it a 50-minute session because the client kind of came a few minutes early, and so I need to downcode to make it accurate. So if they see that downcoding and accuracy, that makes them sit back a little bit like, oh, okay, we trust this person. But every time, if they're seeing your numbers don't match your billing codes, okay, we're going to get her here. I'm sorry, I get that
Yeah.
vision. I don't like to see them as an enemy, but when they see sloppiness on our part, and I know it's like a ridiculous, but we have to deal with the system that is until the system changes. That's kind of people complain a lot to me, and I just want to say absolutely. And I live in the land of what is, and how do I not lose money? My goal has always been, I don't spend a lot of time fighting the insurance system because it's too big of an ask. My goal is, how can I help all of you and me never to lose money? And that kind of is the best way to give it back to them.
Yeah, exactly. Like don't make these little easy mistakes,
Yeah.
At least make them like work for it to take the money back.
So other easy
Yeah.
things that need to be in there, basic things like the client's name needs to be on every page. The CPT code should be in there. The session attendees, we said start and stop times. If it's a telehealth session, you need to say it. You can't say, well, of course it was a telehealth session. You need to say, and not just use the word telehealth, you need to say video or phone. Again, they can, I've seen them actually claw back money for sessions or not pay because the person did not write the word telehealth. And then they billed
Yeah.
for a telehealth session. So they need everything to match between your notes. And again, they'll pick out little tiny things like that. This is one that they don't usually get mad at you about, but many states require you to write the location of the client if it's a telehealth session, and some insurance plans do too. But okay, let's get to the big ones. I would say there's
Okay.
4 big things that need to be in every note, no matter whether you work with insurance or not. And the first one is, what were the topics that the client talked about, right? This is the one we spend too much time talking about, in my opinion. So I've seen people's notes that go on for 20 minutes about, the Sherry went to the 7-Eleven and got a strawberry freeze, and then she got a hot dog, and it's just like story, 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 and then they end the note. This is not a psychotherapy. It's not enough just to say he went to visit his mom this weekend and da da da. Watch out for storytelling too much. We do that too much, and that's not enough for a note. Topic is okay, but I always say start your note with client felt X about X. Like, get the feelings in right away. So if client did visit his mom this weekend, client was angry after visiting mom this weekend. Client was anxious about visiting his mom this coming weekend. So like right out of the gate, I want to hear symptoms. I want to hear emotions. I want to hear some medical necessity, which we could talk more about if we need. But basically, tell me why this person's coming to therapy. Not
Yeah.
like I should know that within the first, line or two. So you only need maybe 3 lines about what were the topics discussed in therapy. Now, of course, some sessions are going to be much more dense, but let's see if you can get it down. And then the second part I separate out, which is symptoms. Now tell me, what are the underlying symptoms from those topics? Is he having trouble sleeping? So especially, I'm going to go to diagnosis. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Diagnosis should be in every session note.
Okay.
So
Good point.
I'm
Yeah.
going to look at diagnosis up there and go, oh, okay, I've given him an adjustment disorder with depression. I better be in the symptoms section talking about what his current depression symptoms are. So he's having trouble, sleeping or concentrating or, loss of pleasure whatever. And I know that gets redundant if he keeps coming in with the same symptoms, but try to say it in a little different way so they don't think you've copied and pasted. Still having
Yeah.
trouble with, or whatever. So try to, maybe this week was a little harder because blah, 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 the symptoms that you're seeing. And then you're going to say intervention. So number 3 of the top big things is interventions. What did you do and why should we, the insurance plan, pay you?
Yeah.
And I am really a stickler for it shouldn't be a checklist. It shouldn't be beep, beep, and beep.
Instinct. Yeah.
Because I don't want to
Yeah.
see that you checklisted CBT therapy and every week I see a checklist that you did CBT therapy. Well, you're now 4 months in and all I know about your treatment is a check for CBT therapy, but I have no idea, what does that really look like when you say that?
Yeah.
And sometimes we're checking what I would call, I don't want to judge it, things that should not be on there, like supportive listening. Like that is not something that insurance feels like.
That's not a good one, right?
So, what I tell people is if a grandma could do it, don't put it as one of your interventions. Like it has to be something you went to grad school to learn.
That's a
So,
great way to think of it.
yeah, nothing like reflexive listening and support or validation. Get rid of those. Get rid of anything that
Nice.
you're going to do in every session. So if you want to write down CBT, tell me how you used it in the session. Well, I helped him notice his all or nothing thinking, and we looked at alternative affirmations, whatever. Just like a sentence or two about, so that next week I'm going to see a different way you use CBT in a different way. And then we looked at, so then I look at 4 session notes. I'm going to see 4 techniques that you used within CBT, and I'm going to go, okay, this person's really actively giving a lot to this client, giving tools, and I'm going to see it. And if that client later complains about you, you can be like, look at all the tools I gave, right?
Look what I did. Yeah. But
Face,
she didn't use
your
them.
notes are basically your defense mechanism. If anyone ever gives, so that's another way to look at your session notes. To me, it's like, hey, go ahead and complain, client, because I've got this, I've got this evidence of the care I provided. And
Yeah.
one thing that I used to teach this session note thing is that attorneys tell me, look, they may, if a client comes and says, I want to sue my therapist or whatever, and they request your session notes, the attorney may look at it and go, yeah, you don't want to sue this person. She's got great notes, right? So that's where we want to be with our notes. We hate our notes. We hate doing notes, but at the same time, these are, I find them disgustingly helpful because every time a
Yeah.
client walks in, I, you know, open their chart, whatever way that is, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, here's something that we wanted. I put little notes in there of what I wanted to like pick up next week or a question I wanted to ask, or, oh, that's right. I forgot something very dangerous going on in her life.
It's like, oh, yeah.
You know, I at one time forgot that this person had a family member die the week before. And, you have so many clients. Sometimes you forget,
Yes.
oh, it was a beloved aunt. Then I could pick up right with there. So sometimes clients say to me, oh my God, you have such a good memory. No, I have a terrible memory, but I have really good notes.
They're really good notes.
Especially if clients go away and they come back like 6 months later and I'll ask them, so how is this? Blah, blah, blah. You have such a good memory. I'm like, oh,
You almost feel guilty.
okay. So
That's funny.
number 3 is interventions. And what I tell people
Okay.
is I want to see 3 sentences at least of 3 things you did in that hour, if it was a therapy hour or 50 minutes, that are worthy of being paid for. Not one thing. You were there for 60 minutes. Now, a lot of psychodynamic therapists say, but I don't work in those kind of behavioral interventions. Like, don't tell me that there aren't something that you did in that 60 minutes. I can come up with 3 things. And I say, do you interpret things that the clients say? Do you point out patterns? Like, do you ask them questions about their, you know, previous relationships or childhood and connect that to their current behavior? Like, that's an intervention. So just make a list of your common interventions, maybe, and try not to repeat them every week. But you just aren't used to thinking of them as interventions. You just interact with clients in a very, intuitive way, and you don't
Yeah.
think of yourself as that was an intervention.
I kind of joke about this on this podcast a lot, because I use berries to write my client notes, and occasionally it'll write the note for me, and it'll list the interventions that I did in the session. I'll be like, "Oh my
Oh,
God, that was an intervention!"
yeah, yeah.
Be like, I didn't even realize it because, like you say, you're just like doing your thing. You don't even realize a lot of times that what you're doing is actually evidence based, or you learned it, in your EMDR training or something like that. And then I love that about berries because it'll like easily turn it into like the perfect wording for your interventions.
And your
Yeah.
interventions, you can put this anywhere in the note. You want to be also recording any kind of homework you gave. And it doesn't have to be like, again, psychodynamic therapists say, well, I don't give homework. Well, you probably do, and you don't think of it as homework. It could be
Yeah.
like, why don't you think about blah, blah, blah. It could be assignment that you gave them to think about, or think back on your past relationships and what went wrong, or think about the men in your life. So if there's something that you gave them to think about, not only is that really good for you to write down so you can remember to ask them about it, but for some of us who are a little more cognitive behavioral or something, and you actually gave them something to do, a worksheet, or you sent them something to read or whatever, great. You want to show the things you're. Now you also want to record if they're refusing your, you
Yeah,
know,
right. Like I'm giving homework like 5 weeks in a row and they refuse to do it, like that kind of thing.
yeah. Or you did a visualization exercise in session and she said it wasn't helpful. Okay, good to note that was not helpful. You still get credit for doing it, like whether it worked or not. Or I told her to read this book and she didn't read it. So then we discussed why didn't she read it, like, or whatever. Okay, so the fourth piece is progress, I would say. So we've got topics, symptoms, interventions, and I would say the fourth main area, the cornerstones of my house, is progress. And somewhere, it doesn't have to be in every session note. I'd say for Medicare, I probably would, but we want to be reflecting that this client is making progress in therapy so that the insurance plan doesn't
Yeah.
go like, hey, why are we paying for this? Like, is this working or not?
Yeah.
Now, they don't expect that every week, you know, tremendous progress. But if you're taking enough metrics when they come in the first session, I take a lot of metrics. And I don't mean like I don't give them a lot of little questionnaires, but I might ask
Yeah.
them simple things like, how many hours are you sleeping a night? Are you skipping meals? Certain things, baselines, so that later I can check in with them and say, so when you came in, you were sleeping only 4 hours a night. How's your sleeping going now? So they could say, oh, yeah, I'm sleeping at least 6 hours. You know,
Yeah.
sleep,
Progress.
sleep is one of those things that is so helpful because it's kind of easy to chart progress, and it's a significant symptom of most of our clients, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so we can say, okay, she's up to 6, but she's still having trouble falling asleep. So you always want to go, yes, but don't want to make them seem like they're all well now. Or if sleep is fine now, what other you still want to say? But she's still having trouble, blah, blah, blah. So always be justifying why this client still needs treatment. And that goes back to the big overarching thing that needs to be in every note, which is medical necessity. And it's basically you need to always be justifying that this client needs therapy, not that it is something they want for personal growth, because insurance does not pay for personal growth therapy. They don't pay.
No.
They typically don't pay for those Z codes in the DSM. They need to see some kind of medical need. So in every session you want to get really good at. That's why I have a separate section for symptoms, which most people don't in progress notes. I hate soap note format. I hate most formats
Oh, me too. Oh
because
my
they
gosh.
don't
I
pull
hate the
out.
objectives.
They don't really remind you to do medical necessity. And with my note, if you really fill out the symptoms section, you've probably, and the diagnosis, you've probably already covered medical necessity because you've told me why that person, it needs to be there because they're having symptoms.
since we're talking about your note and your format, I want to just make a big announcement. On this podcast, you've actually given us at Barry's your progress note, and it's living inside of Barry's now. So if anybody wants to use your template, this perfect template that you're talking about right now, it's a really good note, right? And it's based on all your years of experience, and probably everything you can think of that needs to be in there is in this template that you've given to Barry's to be able to share with every therapist out there, which I think is just amazingly generous. And I'm excited. I can't wait to use it, your note template.
Well, I think some people will look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, this is a long template." But what happened is it started out much shorter. Then I kept over the 10 or 15 years I was doing consulting with therapists who would bring me their audits and tell me, "Oh, they dinged me for this reason or that reason." I'd have to go to the template and add that thing, and then somebody else would add. I had to add. It got changed so many times over the years, and I think now
Yeah.
it hasn't been changed too much. But I think we've now got everything in there. Do you need all that stuff if you don't work with Medicare and Medicaid? No, maybe not, but to me, it's better to have sections. And I think with a little practice, you can go through it pretty quickly. If you're
Yeah.
one of these people, though, who spends 15, 20, 30 minutes doing a note, you need to really get some support with that, because then you're going to be
Yeah.
spending your entire life and you'll be like, I hate doing notes and I'm burning out. Well, no wonder. You should be able to do them within 5 to 10 minutes each. And
Yeah.
that's just something that I think takes practice and maybe a little consultation with someone who's a notes specialist. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, with berries, it's amazing because it's listening for everything on your template. It's listening for, so it's going to fill in all the blanks for you. And it's like pretty much your note is written for you. And we always talk about like you still need your clinical judgment in there. Like you've got to go back, you've got to make sure it filled it in the right way and all of that. But it saves so much time. And then having your format already in there and letting the AI do a lot of it for you, and you don't have to think about it as much, is amazing. And
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that you're giving it to Barry's users.
Oh. Well, please, 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 anyone who uses AI for progress notes, please go over it carefully.
Yes.
And please remember you are legally and every other way responsible for every word that goes in to your notes. And you don't want, oh, I didn't really read that closely and now that's not quite. Or there's missing things that you really wanted to capture, like because you're a human being who
Yeah.
wanted certain things to be, I want to remember to ask her about that thing. Or, hey, her insurance runs out next week. I need to ask her about that. Or she told me she was losing her job. Now, Barry's not going to know what that means. Maybe she's losing her insurance too. So you might
Yeah.
have to
Right.
add something like, hey, check and see if she's losing her insurance too and what that might mean for her. Or she's turning 65. Might she be aging into Medicare? So there's things that Barry doesn't know. Be,
Of course.
be
Yeah.
sure that you're keeping on top of the other stuff and adding it to your
Keep
note.
your like clinical hat on through all of that. Yeah. Through the whole process.
Yeah, I
For
use the
sure.
progress note at the end, like a little notes to myself, almost like a little journal. But let's just say that don't put anything in there in your session note that your client, remember your clients can always request their notes. So don't put anything in there that you wouldn't want a client to see. That's for a separate, if you want to keep separate psychotherapy notes, they need to be separate from the medical record. And
Yeah.
that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
That's such good advice. That's like the psychotherapy notes. And you have so many trainings on this stuff right now on your website still that people can go purchase and
Yep.
access for all types of like couples. We always talked about that, and when Barbara was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, Billy for couples, of course, because that's the big controversial one." But then Barbara gave us our note inside Barry's, and I was so excited. I wanted to talk about progress note instead. But you got your website. Is it at insurancemaze.com? What's your website where people can go and see the trainings and everything?
It's theinsurancemaze.com. Don't forget the or the insurancemaze.com. And if you want to go to the courses, it's /store. So just stick a /store and you can check out all my courses, all my forms. I have forms packets. And on my website somewhere, I'm going to throw this in. There's a list of practice coach people who do consultations on notes or on your business or whatever. Since I'm no longer doing that, I felt guilty. And so I've put together a list, including, of course, Kim. And that's
Thank
on the
you.
consultation page of my website, theinsurancemaze.com. And you can get that for free and download that. But there's all kinds of other resources, a billing service list of billers across the country who can do your billing for you, all kinds of fun resources.
I love it. Yeah. And we were talking before we hit recorded. You're semi-retired, which is amazing. Are you enjoying retired life or how's that going?
I'm busier now than I was when I was working.
Oh my gosh, don't say that. I'm always like, I don't know how I'll ever retire. Like, I remember when you kind of announced it in your newsletter, and if y'all are on her newsletter, make sure you get on it because it's an amazing newsletter. Like, it was also a go-to source for me for, just what's happening in the insurance world over all these years. So it's a really good resource. But yeah, when I read in there that you were going to retire, that also you were generously like now giving this resource list of other companies similar to yours that could offer services like Bill Like a Boss, like one of my businesses that I do. I just thought that was amazing. And that you were retiring, but still keeping that part of it out there to still continue to help people. Really cool.
It's been really hard stepping back because
Has it?
well,
Yeah.
it's been my identity since I, went off to college when I was 22, and I'm now 65. So, and my whole life has centered around it. I've usually
Yeah.
work 7 days a week, and I pick up emails, and I'm writing articles when I have free time, and it feeds me, and I love talking to people across the country and helping therapists, and because they're helping people, and I love meeting with clients, and so it's been such a rewarding profession, and so there is a big vacuum. But
Yeah.
I have a hobby that takes up a lot of my time, which is I'm a costume designer for a
Oh,
theater company, but I can get
wow.
overly obsessive about that now too. So
Yeah, yeah.
but,
That's good though. That sounds fun.
yeah, it is.
That's really cool. Well, thank you so much. And as I said in the beginning, like I just am so excited to talk to you today. You really had an impact on my life, and I know like hundreds of thousands of other therapists as well, making their lives easier with your documentation tools and your billing tips and strategies and your book and your trainings. I've taken a few of your trainings. I mean, they're amazing. And I'm glad that you didn't retire all the way and that you still got some of that out there for people to
I
try.
can't shut up this mouth. It just wants to keep talking. Yeah, I feel like there's still things I have to teach, and it's hard not to have a platform to teach. So I'm learning to say no, though, when I'm invited. So we'll see how that goes.
That's nice. Well, we're totally honored that you came today out of semi-retirement to do this podcast. It's amazing. And giving your notes to the Berries users is incredible.